Hey guys, Kevin Cleary here with The View from the Pew, and today I want to talk a little bit about Christmas. I want to talk about it from a Christian perspective, and speak to some of the things that people sometimes bring up associated with this holiday. So first off, let me point out that you should be at least somewhat aware of the fact that there is no historical connection, between December 25th and the birth of Jesus, right? There's no reason to think that Jesus was born at or anywhere near that particular date, all right? Further, it is true that a number of our Christmas traditions, have their background in paganism, And again, it's not the end of the world because much of that connection is totally lost by this point. Now, let me say, if you're really interested in this and you want to know more, in the description box down below, I will put a link to a different video I did about Christmas where I talked about how Jesus is not the reason for the season, That is, the birth of Jesus is not why we have a celebratory time this time of year. So if you're interested in that, the link is down below. Now, let me say this, that most of the connection to various pagan beliefs and practices is totally gone at this point. All right, when people see a Yule log or a Christmas tree or a red hat with a pom-pom on it or a gift wrap, they don't make a connection to any kind of pagan religious belief or practice. They make a connection to Christmas. And so at this point, those things are really now Christmas traditions, not pagan traditions. So we need to kind of keep that in mind. And just remember that the days of the week are named after pagan deities. And no one gets bent out of shape over, calling it Monday or Tuesday or Thursday or whatever, So I would say that the connection between paganism and most Christmas traditions is long since lost. And it's not the first thing that anyone really thinks of at this point. The next thing that I want to say is, what about our modern concept of Christmas? For many people and for many families, Christmas is a time that they associate with joy and love and gratitude and charity and generosity and, yes, even faith to a greater or lesser extent. All right? Now, by the way, I know that there are those people for whom Christmas is not a fun time. Maybe you've suffered the loss of a loved one, or maybe you are missing people that you wish you had in your life right now. And for those people, I wish you all of God's blessings. And if you're watching this and you know someone who struggles this time of year, please go out of your way to include them and to make this time of year a little more tolerable for them. All right. Now, let me come back to sort of the connection between the concepts that are associated with Christmas and how we celebrate that, So I think it's good that at this time of year, people think about generosity and they think about kindness and they think about spending time with family. Those are good things, and they're things that we should foster and not oppose, all right? But let me point out that despite the fact there are many good things, and I'm going to bring up a couple more in a second, we do have no mandate. That is, nothing in Scripture compels us or commands us to commemorate on December 25th or any other day the birth of Jesus. Scripture does tell us that we ought to commemorate the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, and we do that every first day of the week. Now, if someone chooses to honor a particular day to the Lord, they're totally free to do that. Paul says in Romans chapter 14, verses 5 and 6, that, hey, some people choose to honor a special day and devote it to God. Nothing wrong with that. All right? Now, I know that he's primarily talking about Jewish feast days and Sabbaths, but what he says there is, so long as they don't insist on it for everyone, they're totally free to acknowledge or to devote a special day to the Lord. Now, Colossians 2:16 and following does say, let no one pass judgment on you with regards to Jewish feasts or Sabbaths or anything else. And what that means is, hey, you don't go insisting, okay? If you've got a neighbor who doesn't want to make a big thing about Christmas, or maybe a member of your church who doesn't really celebrate Christmas or feel like they want to, they don't have to. There's nothing requiring them to do so. And so just let it go, okay? In fact, what Paul specifically says there is you can't insist on it. You can't force someone else to observe this day that you've chosen to devote to the Lord in the way that you want to, okay? So keep that in mind as well. Now let's come back to the good stuff, okay? Because, well, I would say, and well, I believe that Jesus is not the reason for the season, okay? I would also say that during this Christmas season, many people do think more and acknowledge more about Jesus and about faith. And many people are reminded of the Judeo-Christian backgrounds of Western culture. And I think that's good. I think it's good to be reminded that some of the things that we do as cultural expressions come directly out of the fact that predominantly Christian faith has been the dominant faith of Western civilization, and Western civilization has benefited greatly from that. Now, there's another side to this, okay? I know that there are people of faith who, based on their understanding of their faith, don't like to celebrate Christmas. But guess what? There are also people who, because of their unbelief, because of their lack of faith, don't want to celebrate Christmas, or at least don't want to celebrate it in certain traditional ways. All right? Now, those people are in a different ballgame altogether. Their opposition to Christmas is explicitly because of its association with religion and with Jesus and with Christianity. Okay? And so they'll say, hey, celebrating Christmas and acknowledging Christmas is not inclusive enough. What about the people who don't come from a Christian background? And I would say to them, well, number one, there's a Christian background to our culture. All right? And Christmas has become largely a cultural phenomenon. But number two, you should not want and you should not pursue a secularization of culture or of our society. That's actually harmful rather than beneficial. All right? And although that is certainly the course we're on in this day and time, we have not yet reached the full expression of that. And when we do, it'll be a scary day because there'll be a lot of things that we take for granted that we will no longer be able to take for granted, such as human rights and the way we treat others and the way we view other countries around the world and any number of other things that we could mention. Okay, now let me share with you a couple of stories along these lines before we move on. There's a great story about some students in a fraternity or sorority, whichever one it was. They decided to have a fundraiser around Christmas where they were going to sell candy canes. And another group called their selling of candy canes a microaggression, as if that's even a thing. Some universities, University of Tennessee, for example, issued a statement saying, make sure that your holiday party isn't a Christmas party in disguise. Other universities have discouraged the use of mistletoe, of red and green bows because of the association with Christmas, and that is absolutely ridiculous, right? That is not being inclusive. That is being foolish, right? Rather, being inclusive would be including everyone in your celebrations, right? To wish everyone a Merry Christmas and to invite everyone to your Christmas party and to invite everyone to be involved in the Christmas gift exchange, that's inclusive, all right? And I know people and have friends who have various religious backgrounds, and I can imagine if one of my Jewish friends wished me a happy Hanukkah, I would simply respond, you too. Thank you. Happy Hanukkah to you as well. If a Muslim friend or associate, coworker or business person or whatever, wished me extended to me a Muslim blessing, I would say thank you, same to you. Right? I wouldn't say, how dare you say that to me? I'm not a Muslim. That would be insane. All right, and a perfect example of this, and although not a religious one, certainly a cultural one, is my sister-in-law's celebration of the Chinese New Year. She comes from China. She was born and raised there most of her life, and so she celebrates, as would be expected, Chinese New Year. It means an awful lot to her. And guess what she does? She invites the rest of the family. Even though we're not Chinese, and even though we didn't grow up celebrating that, she includes us in her celebration. And that's a great fun time for all of us. Really, what would be exclusionary would be for her to say, hey, since you're not Chinese, I'm not inviting you to my Chinese New Year. Forget that. Just like it would be exclusionary for me to say, well, you're not a Christian, so I'm not wishing you Merry Christmas, because that comes from my background. Or, to assume that someone else who seems to maybe be from another background, another culture, and say, well, you're not Canadian, so I'm not wishing you Merry Christmas. Forget it. That would be exclusionary, right? That would be offensive. That would be insulting. It's not insulting at all to say to someone, Merry Christmas. All right. Now let me ask this question. How does Happy Holidays get a pass? Okay, that's the politically correct thing to say for some reason, even though the term clearly comes from holy days. I don't know. That's a question maybe for a different video. But let me say this in closing. Because of the opposition on sort of on a social justice warrior basis that some people have to Christmas, I think we should be going out of our way to say Merry Christmas. Right, to buy cards that say Merry Christmas, to make sure that we extend people a Merry Christmas rather than a Happy Holidays. If for no other reason than Happy Holidays is politically correct, and political correctness is horrible, right, and should be avoided at all cost. Right, so say Merry Christmas. Wish your friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers, bank tellers, grocery attendants, whoever else you talk to, wherever else you go, whether it be at work or at school or at church, wish people a Merry Christmas. That's what time of year it is. And culturally, that there's nothing wrong with that. There's certainly nothing to be ashamed of in celebrating Christmas and wishing people a Merry Christmas. So I hope you'll do that. I wish all of you watching a Merry Christmas. And if you're offended by that, I don't know. Don't subscribe. If, however, you like this, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends, and talk about it among them as well. And really, that's the one thing I want to leave with you is take this video and some of the ideas from it and talk about it with the people around you, with your coworkers and friends and family members, because I think it's a shame, some of the things that are happening to our culture, and I don't think it needs to. All right? So, hope you enjoyed the video, and that was the view from the pew.